Okay, hey guys, I am on page 218. Okay, 218, and this chapter is called Back at Juvie. Okay. The staff at Juvenile Hall remembered Richard from his previous stay there when he was 14. Before he was sent to the group home, he'd been a pain in the ass. Then the kind of kid who kept asking for things, and if he didn't get what he wanted, he'd ask for someone else. He took a lot of time, but they liked him anyway. He was never a bad kid, one staffer explained. He was just a needy kid. He seemed different now. The goofy, antic quality was gone. These days, Richard was serious, withdrawn. The boys who knew him before said he'd gotten boring. He didn't care about getting laughs. They were just 90 or 100 kids in all of Juvenile Hall, most of them boys, even though the facility had been built for 360. Now, with the juvenile incarceration rate sinking, only half of the 12 30-bed units were open, and each of those was only half full. Richard knew the juvenile hall routine already. Before you leave your room in the morning, fold up your pajamas and blankets and leave them in a neat pile on the bed, what they called open air style. Step outside, put your shoes on, and then stand in front of your cell with your hands clasped behind your back to await instructions. Breakfast is in the common area, at one of the round tables with checkerboard patterns in the center. School is a few yards away in 2 classrooms next to the common area. Those classrooms were the most colorful part of the unit, the walls covered with posters, word lists, number lines, a visual vacation from the drab sameness of the rest of the unit. Richard found it was easiest to concentrate there than it had been at school. Even with the chaos of the living unit occasionally erupting outside the classroom, he'd steadily moved through his coursework, earning decent grades for the first time in his high school career. On Sundays, he went to services, which were held inside one of the classrooms. He liked studying the Bible, particularly the story of Job. In the story, God tests Job's faith by killing his wife, and his children, and his servants, destroying his house, his animals, and all of his possessions. He makes Job's skin erupt and boils. Eventually, Job is reduced to nothing but raw suffering. How is this fair? Job asks. What kind of God does this to people? At the end of the story, God comes to Job in a whirlwind to answer his questions with questions of his own. Would you discredit my justice? Would you condemn me to justify yourself? He asks. He asked Job if he was there when the earth was made, if he knows where light and darkness dwell, if he can bind a unicorn and make him plow the field. Do you have an arm like God's? Can your voice thunder like his? Okay, Job says, I see your point. God's knowledge and power are so vast, there's no point in questioning his choices. For Richard, the story was a comfort. Early in his stay, Richard found himself sharing a 15-person living unit with a kid who had robbed him at gunpoint, the one he had thought as his friend. The boy apologized for robbing him. Richard told Jasmine that he'd accepted the apology because he knew what it was like to have wronged somebody. He too hoped to be forgiven. Forgive, but do not forget, Jasmine liked to say. But now Richard told her to stop saying that. To forgive, you have to forget, he counseled, because otherwise you haven't truly forgiven.